Aloha! Today I want to talk to you about the antidote to imposter syndrome, which is actually a concept that I call authentic authority. And I'm not going to talk a ton about imposter syndrome. I'm actually going to talk about this idea of authority. So, where my background is that I started a business about 7 years ago where I wanted to work with people who were doing creative, really interesting things, and they wanted to share those projects in bigger and bolder ways. And I had a background in marketing, I had a background in writing, and so I became a marketing communications consultant. And over time, that evolved to doing brand strategy development and copywriting, and now business coaching. And so I bring all of this stuff forward when I work with clients, but what came up a lot, I noticed, as I did this work over time, especially with service providers who are really mission-driven and super high integrity, is that they had these tremendous ideas that they wanted to share and gifts that they wanted to give and ways that they wanted to work with people and make money doing it. And they felt so unqualified. It was like, I can't do that thing I want to do because I haven't done it yet for money in that particular way, and therefore I'm not qualified. And how can I charge people for it? That's terrible. So of course, a lot of us have discomfort with the idea of charging money, and that's a completely different thing. What really struck me was that a lot of people were hiring me not just to help them get the words out and to make it sound really polished and sound good, but to actually give them the confidence to stand in that, to be like, no, this is what I do, and it's totally valid that I choose to do it. I am a valid service provider. I have value, and you should trust me. And, I think it's interesting because copywriters by nature, since that's the majority of what I was doing, personal brand strategy and copywriting, they're very intertwined, as you can imagine. It's like, how are we going to tell a story about you that showcases all the value you have to offer, that makes it really easy for people to understand what you do and why they need it, and then helps you express your values and your passions and all that stuff too. So how do you bring all of those things forward in your communication? So that was sort of the goal, and I could understand why people were like, well, you have perspective, so you can tell me if I'm qualified to do this, but you can make me sound qualified. And underneath that, there was often this tinge of, I don't believe I'm qualified, so I'm going to have someone outside of me look at me and reflect back to me that I am, in fact, qualified. Or that I have the authority to talk about this. Or I have the chops to actually ask people to pay me to do this. And it was fascinating, right? And I certainly experienced it too. As a high integrity person, as a straight A student in school, I was always the kind of person that loved it when other people would tell me that I was good at something. I wanted authority figures to look at me and say, you're fabulous at XYZ, here's your A+ and your shiny star sticker and your award, and now you can go tell people with total confidence that this is what you're good at because I said you were good at it. And that's the thing that gets hard when you're running your own business. That's the thing you don't have that you do have in a corporate job or in a traditional job. Someone telling you this is the job you're qualified to do, so here it is, and here's your money, go do it. When you're building your own thing, you don't have anybody telling you that. There's nobody who's going to say to you, oh, sure, of course you're great at that. You should do that. I mean, you can work with a coach who can reinforce for you that that's something you can hire strategists, you can hire copywriters, you can hire designers. You can surround yourself with people to reflect back to you this idea that yes, you have the chops to make it. And yes, you have the chops to sell your services and to help people. But until you believe it, you're not going to radiate that. You're not going to show up in a way that's clear that you know how to help people. And that's what's really going to get you the results that you're wanting from this idea of authority anyway. So this is sort of the place I found myself in, is what's led me to this concept of authentic authority, because I've certainly experienced it too. Like I said, imposter syndrome is a real thing for me. There have been plenty of times in the course of developing up to where I am now that I felt like, well, I'm not qualified to do that. I can't tell people that I can help them with their branding because no one ever paid me in a corporate job to be a brand strategist. Like, what does that matter if I am helping people create strategy and messaging that feels aligned for them and supports their brand and makes them sound fucking awesome? Like, why do I need proof? I don't. I'm just scared. And so that's what I really want to get into, is this concept of authentic authority. And so I'm looking at my notes here. Yeah, there will come a point where you realize I can't keep expecting other people to reflect it back to me. I just have to take ownership, and I have to stand in the enough-ness of where I am now and really trust that what I have to offer matters. I have to stand in this, and I have to believe this, and I have to sell it and share it and speak it and live it and walk my talk, right? Like, you reach that point. And I know I reached that point, and it was scary. It was one of the reasons I hired a coach, because I knew I needed mindset help. I needed support for someone to come to me and be like, yeah, let's work on the voices in your head that say you don't have what it takes, because that's inaccurate. And it doesn't matter how many other people tell you, you have to believe it. And so I feel like largely I'm on the other side of that, which is phenomenal. And I totally get it. And in particular, this idea of authority was really uncomfortable for me because I had some not so nice associations with the concept of authority. So in my mind, having authority, like being qualified to talk about something, this idea of being authoritative and like being on stage, or even though I'd been on stage, right? So this is the thing our brains can do, is they can make us afraid of things that we really want, even if we have evidence to the contrary. We have evidence that like becoming a leader or an authority figure does not make you a terrible person. And yet, if you want it, you can freak out and think it's going to make you a terrible person. So what my associations were with the concept of authority was that authority figures, if I were an authority figure, it would mean I had power over other people, that was manipulative and controlling, that I would be forcing people to do things that they didn't want to do, that I would be selfish, and I would be trying to like shove people in a box and make them do things the way that I thought they should be done. Essentially, it was power over others. And that was it like really sat in this horrible way with me. I was like, I don't want to have power over other people. Who am I? And so the thing is, authentic authority is not that. That type of authority is really rooted in an idea of scarcity. It's familiar to me because of my corporate life and because the traditional narratives around business development are competition and scarcity, and like it's a cutthroat environment and you have to stand out against the crowd and everyone is vying for the same limited share of dollars, and you just have to like win. You have to win. You have to be king and stay king or topple the king, and that like you have dominion and power over others if you want to succeed. And that just didn't feel good to me. I was like, oh, like I want to be empowered, but I don't want that kind of power. What do you do? Well, fortunately, I've been in the world of personal development long enough, and I have worked with enough powerful women for long enough that I have seen there is, in fact, an alternative to that kind of authority. There is another way, and it's a beautiful way. And it's actually about supporting and nurturing and serving others by really owning your gifts and owning your talents and owning the value that you have to bring to the world. It's different. It's not competitive. It's supportive, and it doesn't tear other people down. It actually builds other people up. It's the concept of a rising tide, right? A rising tide lifts all boats. And so that was the alternative. The alternative to this traditional scarcity, power hungry, like put people down and like own them somehow, was this idea of, no, actually you empower and enable and strengthen others by sharing what you know and doing it in a conscious way, doing it in a kind way, doing it in a way that allows other people to be their own person and doesn't diminish who you are in that process. So that's what I talk about when I talk about authentic authority. It's rooted in this sense of self-acceptance, and it's rooted in trust in who you are, in the talent that you have to bring to the table, and ultimately in your worth. It's rooted in self-worth, the idea that you are valuable just as you are. And it really is exponential. It allows you to, when you show up from a place of authentic authority, you allow others to do the same. When you operate from a place of personal leadership, you empower others to be leaders in their lives. And you empower other people to say, I'm good enough and I matter. And I'm not going to kowtow to people who seem to have more authority than I am. I'm not going to compare myself unnecessarily to people who have achieved things that maybe I think I want to achieve. And there is an enoughness in who you are right now. So that's the idea of authentic authority. And typically when I'm working with people, they want to A, know they have it, and B, want to be able to access it and embody it. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can do that. So when I'm working with clients, I focus on a few areas. When, we're writing website copy, or we're developing packages, or we're thinking about legacy and vision and like where someone wants to go with their life, and really thinking about that sweet spot of what they want to be known for, is a blend of a couple of things. So there is your professional expertise, this idea of like, well, this is the professional experience I have, these are the skills that I have. For me, it's like, no, I am a good writer, and I've spent a lot of time now working with small business owners, and I do have strong ideas about personal branding and bringing your values into it and coaching and all this stuff. So there's professional experience, and then there's personal experience. There's lived experience. There's the knowledge that you uniquely bring to the table because it's your perspective, it's your worldview, it's the things you've lived through that allow you to speak with authority on things that may not be something you'd put on a resume, but they're innately embedded in who you are because it's about the life that you've lived and the journey you've been on, and you can help other people on that journey also. And then the third piece is just your innate strengths, your innate talents and values. And there's a lot of personality tests that you can take that help identify those things. Like StrengthsFinder comes to mind, is a great one. I really like that one. And you know what some of your talents are. You probably play to your strengths already, especially if you have a business. Then you know that that's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the whole puzzle. So anyway, when I'm working with people, those are sort of the three areas that I focus on. And then there's a fourth that comes into play, which is your vision, meaning your dreams and where you want to be headed. And that is kind of the trickiest place. That's where a lot of people get hung up on this idea of authority, and that's where the imposter syndrome kicks in, because if you know you want to be doing something, but you're not currently doing it, or you want to evolve and like bring what you are doing to the next level, by definition, you haven't been to your next level yet. So it's like, ooh, it's new, and I don't know if I'm qualified, and that's where the qualification comes up. But I firmly believe that if there's something that you want to do, there's a way that you can do it using what you already know, and you can bring it in. So I'm going to talk about that. So if you were to really embody this idea of authentic authority in your business, it would basically mean that you show up and you bring all of yourself to the table in service of others. You bring your professional experience and your personal experience and your talents and your skills and your ideas all in support of others, of one particular person, right? If you're serving, how are you going to help that person relieve their pain points? How are you going to help them achieve their dreams? That's what it means to show up with authentic authority in your business and at work. And so here are a few ways if you find that imposter syndrome kicking up for you and you're like, well, I don't know how do I step into this place of authentic authority? Here are 3 things you can do. Number 1, recognize that you already are qualified. We tend to really dismiss what we've achieved and what we've accomplished. It's so much easier, right, when someone else will reflect it back to you. it's like I wanted people to just tell me what I was great at. And you can do that. You can get market research. You can interview past clients. You can have conversations with friends and family. And actually, I do recommend that if you really have no clue what you're good at, it's a really helpful place to start. But you probably do have some track record, right, of what you've done and what you've achieved. And so on the practical side, it's important to look at that. It's important to be honest with yourself and to say, what have I done in this area that I want to be growing into? If you're looking at your next level, and let's say your next level includes coaching, as it did for me at one time, it's like, I want to be charging for that. I want to bring that into the sphere of how I support people, but I'm not qualified. I've never done that before. I can't. So that was my immediate ego reaction. I don't know what I'm doing, and I've never done it before because I'd never had that job title. I'd never had a company print me a business card that said I was a coach. But that doesn't mean that I couldn't coach, and it doesn't mean that I hadn't coached. It just meant that I hadn't claimed that title for myself in the past, and I hadn't really stepped into it. So what I could do was look back at how I had worked with people and how the support helped them. What was I wanting to do as a coach? And had I done anything like that before? The answer was, of course, yes, constantly. As a copywriter, as a brand strategist, as a marketing communications consultant, when I worked one-on-one with service-based business owners, there was a lot of working on mindset, of talking about digging in and understanding what was really at play there and helping them make decisions in a way that felt good for them, not by forcing my opinion onto them, by reflecting back what I saw and asking curious questions. There was a lot of that work that I was already doing, and I just hadn't given it that label. So it was important for me to recognize that was a capacity that I'd already been operating in. I just hadn't called it that. And it's important to do that with yourself, to do an honest audit with yourself about the work you've done and the kind of results you've achieved, so that you can satisfy your brain when it says you're totally unqualified, because you are, but you probably haven't taken the time to really look at it. And on the off chance you're not qualified, if you want to do something that you've never done in any capacity before, be honest about that too, and realize that you can totally start. You can practice. You can do it for free. You can take a training course. I don't recommend getting totally stuck and sucked down the hole of trainings and courses, because that's easy to do. They're totally valuable. I'm not saying don't do them, because yes, and practice is the thing that's going to help you realize how you can create results for other people. So you can be open and upfront about what you don't know and allow yourself to just get practice. Do it for free. Do it for free for people who know where you're coming from, who are open to helping you, and let yourself learn and grow. And then once you have the experience and you've created results for people, then start charging for it. It's basically as simple as that. But if even that feels hard, it's important to remember that even in traditional jobs, people get hired to do things they haven't done before. That's always how it works. You may have, I think what's common is that you kind of lean into a new job before you get the new title and the new salary, but you're not doing the new job until you're hired to do the new job, right? So it's a similar thing. You can lean into the experience that you want to have and begin bringing it into your work. It's just that you have to be a bit bolder in claiming it. You have to be willing to say, yes, this is a thing I do. This is a thing I offer. And you do it in integrity with yourself. Do it in alignment with what feels right. Don't charge for it if you think you can't do a good job helping people get results in that way. Just test it. Test it till you feel good about charging. But there's no law that says you can't start. And if there's a voice in your head saying you can't, it's only the voice of fear. So recognize your qualifications, please, on a professional front. And on the personal side, understand that your heart is not an asshole. So there's a mentor I follow, this woman I follow named Amanda Foy. She's wonderful. She's called the Emotional Strengths Trainer, and she's an energy healer, and she's fabulous. And one of the things she likes to say is the universe is not an asshole. So I'm going to borrow that and say, yeah, and your heart's not an asshole either. You do not want the things you want because you're getting set up to fail. You want the things you want because they have something available. There's something there for you and for the world. I believe in a divinely orchestrated picture, and even if you don't, you can follow the calling in your heart and allow that to be a way that you experiment and play and show up differently in the world. The world needs what you want to give it, so just give it. And you have the resources that you need are there. You just have to start taking the action. So don't doubt on the personal side that you don't have what it takes, because you do. There's this wonderful quote, and I searched to see who said it and I couldn't find it, but it's this concept that within an acorn, there is the promise of an oak tree. And that's true for you. You're the acorn and you're growing into the oak tree, and it's only going to be later when you're further down the path that you'll be able to look back and be like, oh, it's an oak tree, or oh, it's this kind of journey, or oh, I did that. For now, your only job is to grow forward, is to be in the growth and to be in the movement and to do the thing that you really want to do. So that's the first part. And then another important thing around your authentic authority is to recognize that not everyone is your audience. So you can be an authority figure, meaning you can have insights that are valuable and contributions to offer and services that matter and create an impact for people, but not for everyone. You will never serve everyone, and that's a good thing. That's why there's so much abundance and so many opportunities for people to find their perfect fit. If you're not listening to this video, it's because it wasn't meant for you, right? Like, it didn't resonate with you, and that's totally fine. I fully recognize that not everyone's going to watch this. And I welcome that, because the people who this does support and serve will be served by it. And that's a beautiful thing. You are not for everyone. And I'm going to pull again from Miss Amanda Foy and share with you an affirmation / intention that she shared with me that I think is really, really valuable around this. It goes, I only attract people who love and accept me for who I am and are on the same path as me. How great is that? I love and accept people. No, yes, well, I do love and accept people, but also I only attract people who love and accept me for who I am and are on the same path as me. The reason I love this in business is because it's true. I've seen it over and over again. I work on people's stories. I help them pull out the story that's going to be the backbone of their brand story. That's essentially their origin story and how they came to be doing what they're doing now in their business and in their brand. And the thing is, we do attract people who are on the same path as us. Most of the people in our audience are going to be people that are on the same path, living the same story, living the same journey. They're just a bit further back on the path. So it's true. Those are your people, and the other ones aren't. So the good news is you're not an authority figure for everyone. And that's great. Like, if it's not for you, it's not for you. And that's okay. And the third thing that I really want you to know is that at the end of the day, it's not about you. This is something that my coach shared with me. My coach's name is Michaela O'Connor, and she's phenomenal. But the idea here is that it's you serving isn't about you serving for yourself. It's about you serving for others. So a lot of people get hung up on the idea of standing in their strength and having authority and being a leader as like, well, I'm not full of myself. But it's not about you. It's not about what you think of yourself. And at the end of the day, when you're serving, you shouldn't be thinking about yourself, because it's not about you. It's about the person who you're helping. Back when I said the people who you're helping them achieve their pain, relieve their pains or achieve their dreams, that's the service that you're in. It doesn't matter really what you think about yourself unless you bring your self-consciousness and questioning into the service, and then it's a problem, actually, because it's not about you. It's about the person across from you, and how can you support them bringing forward everything that you have, your professional experience, your personal experience, your strengths, your talents. How can you serve them? And a piece of this that is really, really important is to listen, and to listen really deeply. To know that you don't have all the answers is a good thing. To know that you're not everyone's cup of tea is a good thing. Your authority is more authentic and more meaningful when you give the person across from you space to really be who they are and let them ask what they need to ask. And don't back away from your own answers and your own inner knowing. And don't force your ideas on them. Don't make yourself be the be all end all for them. You don't have to do that. In fact, you shouldn't do that because it's not really your place. Really, at the end of the day, this is about serving that person. So again, to go back to the distinction in authority, you showing up in service is kind of a balancing act. It's not having power over someone. It's about understanding how you can support them. And if you're ever in doubt, you can ask, is that helpful? Does that make sense? What do you think about that? Because that's something I didn't realize for a long time. You can do. You can say to people, is this helping you? Is this something that resonates for you? Does this make sense? What do you think? Really allow the other person to have their integrity, to be intelligent, because they are intelligent. Really empower them by seeing them and by letting them take up space. You being an authority figure and being someone who knows what she's doing and has authentic authority doesn't mean you steamroll. It actually just means that you have a strong center, kind of like in yoga, right? Like you have a strong center, that you're grounded, you know what you believe, you know what you're capable of doing. It's all in alignment with your integrity, but ultimately you're serving the person across from you. And so that's what you can really stand in, is this truth that you can meet another person and you can provide strength and insight to them without overwhelming them or disempowering what they believe. It is possible. I know it's in you. And if you have any questions, just leave a comment or send me an email. This is obviously a complicated topic and it goes pretty deep into a lot of different areas, but I know those three things. Be really supportive. Fact check your own questioning about whether or not you are qualified. Chances are you are, and if you aren't, you can get those qualifications pretty easily through practice. Realize not everyone's your audience and get good with that. Self-mastery is about understanding that this isn't just how can I get more all the time. That's not really the goal of any of this. The goal is in serving others and serving those who need to hear your message, who need to hear your insights. Those people want to hear them and they're out there. And it's not everybody and it's great. And then the third part, of course, is remembering it's not about you. And that's a beautiful thing too. Because when you allow the you-ness and the selfness to fade away, like the ego kind of push, look at me. When you allow that to fade away and really show up in connection and communication and in service to another person, that's where the magic is.